What is going on? Man, it's been a long time since I've been on the bike. Too long. Went through a lot of changes for as far as riding is concerned and personal life. I'm still cigarette free. Over 2 years now. As you can see, my name has changed. I'm no longer Stang Pete 67. It is Dr. Brewski. Brewski's been a nickname I've had for a while, and no, I didn't get a doctorate, but I did get a DR. It's a 99 DR 650. When I picked it up, it was in sad shape, barely made it home. The frame was covered in rust. Carburetor had been sitting outside in a shed for a couple years, so she was in need of some serious TLC. So got her home, tore it down to the bare frame, sanded all the rust and all the old powder coat off of it, put a fresh coat of paint on. Did the primer and the spray on bed liner type stuff. Herculiner, I think it was called. While I had everything torn apart, I replaced every single bearing. The steering head bearings, the axle bearings, suspension bearings, swing arm bearings, everything. Brand new. Right? The only major overhaul that I didn't do was on the engine. The engine is still running good. Only had 19,000 miles on it. And the only real problem that it was showing was the valve cover gaskets were leaking. So I replaced those, and she's running like a top. I rebuilt the BST-40 and put a dyno jet kit in it. Rebuilt the brakes, both master cylinders and the calipers got completely overhauled. Stainless steel brake lines, brand new brake pads, new tires, new tubes, new chain and sprockets. I'm still running the factory gearing, but rather than a 525 chain, I'm running a 520 chain. DG exhaust. I ground down the little booger of a weld that was on the header. Did the fiberglass wrap on the header pipe with the pipe armor. Running a 250 watt stator with the new rectifier / voltage regulator. Running a new shore eye battery, new headlight and tail light. I got the little adjustment screws for the headlight. That way I don't have to get in there with a screwdriver. I can just do it with the thumb screws. And then once I got it all put back together, I rode down to the DMV to get registered and everything ran great. After that, it was getting a gnarly relay chatter, and when I crank it, it would crank over like a couple times and the relay would just start buzzing, and started chasing down where it was coming from, trying to figure it out, thinking, all right, it might have been a loose connection in the wiring harness. So I replaced the wiring harness. Was still doing it. Replaced the starter, rebuilt the starter, replaced the brushes. I was still doing it, and I was just, it was like I was chasing a ghost. I could not figure it out. I talked to a bunch of people, and they're saying you're having a ground issue. They're like, no, well, all the grounds are clean. It's grounding out perfectly fine. There's not excessive resistance, anything like that. And just combing through the climber's manual wiring diagram in the back. And one day I was looking at the manual, looking at the bike, and I realized my mistake. There are 3 heavy gauge wires. Pretty sure they're like 8 gauge wires that are on DR650. One of them is about 3 inches long. It goes from the positive side of the battery to the starter relay. That's the only place that one can go. The other 2 wires, however, are both black, and they're the exact same length. The only difference is one of them has a little antler off of it where the wiring harness plugs into. That's the ground. That's the one that's supposed to go from the negative of the battery to the ground down on the engine case. The other one doesn't have anything on it. That's the one that's supposed to go from the relay to the starter. Well, I had those 2 mixed up and plugged the wiring harness in where it was supposed to on that little antler. And that's what was happening, is every time I'd hit the starter button, it would start to crank, and then the wiring harness would be trying to ground out, and it would freak out, and the relay would start going off. So, yes, I did have a ground issue, but it wasn't the ground issue that everybody was thinking. But finally got that fixed, and she left me stranded. I made it about 10 miles doing my maiden voyage, I guess you could call it, after getting that fixed. Made about 10 miles, and she started spitting, sputtering, popping, you know, as if she was running way too rich, but she was temping out at like 300 degrees, which means that she's running way too lean. Those spark plugs confirmed that. They were, you know, brown because it was running so lean. So I went in, adjusted the carburetor a little bit more, cleaned everything up, thinking maybe it had bad gas, changed out the fuel filter, changed out the angle and everything of how the fuel line comes off the fuel tank and goes into the carburetor, and took it out again. This time I got about 15 miles before she started spitting and sputtering. Said, you know what, I'm done dicking with this thing, and I bought an FCR. The BST is a very forgiving carburetor with jetting, temperature changes, altitude changes, but it is a vacuum actuated carburetor, and you will always have a slight off-idle bog with it. And anybody that has ridden a DR650 that still has a BST on it knows that it's a bush pig. That's how it gets its nickname. It leaves a lot to be desired. And then got the FCR. Now this FCR is off of a 2005 Yamaha YFZ 450 quad, and without tweaking too much, I mean, I changed out the jets. MX Rob is the pioneer for the carburetor conversion, and ProCycle sells a kit that's tailored to his specifications as far as what jets, the needle, and all of that. And it comes with the intake horn, but he also modifies them and sells them. I was talking to him. He was in the middle of moving, and everything was packed up. He didn't really have access to much, so I bought a carburetor off of eBay and just started going to town with it. I had to grind down a couple of the lips that were on the air filter side of the carburetor, you know, with a flat file, and changed out the jets and did a couple little tweaks on it. Had the drill for the push cable on the throttle cable, and put it in there, and it's like night and day. This carburetor does everything that you could only dream that the VST would. I honestly think that this is what the DR650 should come with. Suzuki, if you're listening, start putting SCRs in the DR650. The flat slide carb with an accelerator pump, man, it wakes it up so much. You know, there's no more off-idle bog. It pulls all the way through the RPM range. Let's see here. Alright. I'm in 5th gear right now. I'm going to go ahead and slow down. So, 5th gear, doing 30 miles an hour. I'm just going to roll on the throttle. Another 60. And I was just easing on the throttle, you know. I didn't snap on it. I didn't, you know, try to bog it out. Although I'm kind of curious now. I'm gonna get down to about 30, and then I'm just gonna whack it open. So 30 in 5th gear. 32. It's like a 31 will work. Alright, she's got a little bit of a chug. But she just pulls. Doesn't hesitate. You try that with a VST. It's going to fight and stutter and fumble all over. So if you ride a DR650, put an FCR in it. You will not be disappointed. And that's about all I've got for you guys today. I'm going to touch base and let y'all know I'm still alive, and I will be making a comeback. My hiatus is over. Now that I have a bike that I can ride regularly, because with the pit bike, you know, I'd have to coordinate, you know, make sure that my weekend was open, you know, check the weather, and, you know, I had to haul it out to the trails. Now, I can just get on and ride, which is what I prefer to do anyway. But there's more moto vlogs from me to come. Don't worry. I don't plan on being absent for too much, you know, unless I'm moving and physically unable to motovlog. But we'll see how it goes. I will talk to you later. See ya.